Virginia Attorney General candidate Jay Jones is under fire following some nothing less than explosive leaked text messages. In the texts, Jones made comments about violence toward former Republican State House Speaker Todd Gilbert. Jones says he's reached out to Gilbert to apologize and wishes he could take those comments back.
Again, I am so deeply, deeply sorry and wish that I hadn't done it. But again, I want to make sure that everybody knows that I'm so apologetic. And that's why I reached out to the Speaker. And I want the people of Virginia to know that I am sorry. And that is not acceptable, and that they should have a leader in me who's someone who understands when I've made a mistake. And I'm not perfect, and I don't claim to be, and I've erred. But I learn from those things. And that's, I think, an important part of this is that I take it, and we grow from it, we learn from it.
Joining us to discuss this is the Virginia Attorney General's race is the Hill's political reporter Julia Manchester. Julia, we won't go into the explicit nature of these texts, but one of the things that we should point out is in them, Jones talks about some lawmakers needing to feel real pain, like losing their children, in order to change their policy positions. Not something anybody should be A, saying, but B, saying when you're in the middle of a campaign.
Yeah, in the middle of the campaign, and also in the middle of the campaign to become a state's top law enforcement officer. This has really shaken not only the Virginia Attorney General's race, but the Virginia general election this November to its core. It's no longer just a state and local story impacting, Virginia politics. Now you're seeing national politics. It's turning into a national political story, with President Trump calling on Jay Jones to suspend his campaign, Vice President Vance saying the same thing, other attorneys generals on the Republican side and Republican lawmakers, etc., they are really piling on. Of course, this comes less than a month, or roughly a month, after the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. We are in the midst of a nationwide conversation about this uptick in political violence. These text messages were from 2022. However, the fact that they are out in the public sphere right now amid this conversation about an uptick in political violence is notable and could stand to impact the race.
You know, Abigail Spanberger, of course, reacted to this. She said she spoke frankly with Jay about her disgust with what he had said and texted. These are her words now. I made clear to Jay that he must fully take responsibility for his words. What I've also made clear is that as a candidate and as the next governor of our Commonwealth, I will always condemn violent language in politics. And of course, we really haven't made clear, but these texts were about violence. Yeah. Of course, it's important for Spanberger to do this.
Right.
And there are some people, particularly, on the right, who are like, you got to do more. And one of those people is her challenger, Winsome Earl-Sears.
Yeah, Winsome Earl-Sears, President Trump, all these Republicans are calling on Abigail Spanberger to essentially tell Jay Jones to drop out of the race. What's unique about Virginia, and it is a Virginia ticket, Jay Jones, Ghazala Hashmi, Abigail Spanberger, they are all on the same ticket. However, they run their own races. So Jay Jones won the Democratic primary for this seat. It's not like Abigail Spanberger handpicked him for Attorney General, but there still is that pressure for her to inflict pressure on him to drop out. No indication he will at this point, but if you're Abigail Spanberger, if you're a Democrat in Virginia who's had a pretty good election year so far, I would argue the Spanberger campaign has been pretty smooth and run pretty well. This is not the headache you want to be dealing with weeks out from Election Day. And
a couple of days away from a very important gubernatorial debate. I can only imagine this is probably going to be one of the first two questions that she gets. But I think she's probably, if I were moderating this debate, I would ask her, are you going to ask Jay Jones to drop out of this race? And if not, why not? Is she going to have to go a little bit further? Is anybody in her campaign, Democratic strategists around the Commonwealth, saying you may have to go a little bit further here?
I have not heard that from Democrats. Republicans, of course, are saying that. But look, I think the next 2 days going into this debate, 2-3 days, are going to be crucial. We could see developments. I think we're going to continue to see that pressure campaign be inflicted on Spanberger, Hashmi, Democrats across Virginia, and we could see an update. I don't know what that update will be, but there is pressure for Jay Jones to leave this race. And you've certainly, I would say that Hashmi and Spanberger have already distanced themselves from this. It's clearly frustrating to them, to say the least.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
I mean, well, you know, I think we've seen increased political, rhetoric on both sides of the aisle. I think that's where we've seen it before. I think in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, the J6 riots, there are so many examples of political violence and, ramped up political rhetoric. I think this is an example of this. These text messages were from 2022. They're not being said in the context of 2025, but it still very much is a part of that conversation.
But we should say there's no evidence he actually believed what he said should be carried out.
Right.
It just seems to be, pardon me, an act of real stupidity.
It was stupidity, and it's interesting, he said it to another lawmaker, a Republican lawmaker in Virginia, so that's kind of an interesting tidbit to add in here.
Yeah. Before we go, let's listen to Jay Jones's opponent in this race, Jason Miyares.
Jay Jones has proven by his actions that he is reckless, he is biased, he is willing to trade his integrity away. Jay Jones is sorry only after it made the news. Jay Jones regrets it only after it has endangered his campaign.
So look, voting has already started, but this race was already very, very close.
It was very close. And in fact, I think there's a lot of Republicans in Virginia who have been frustrated for some time that Jason Miyares wasn't the Republican candidate for governor because he is a very good candidate, whether you agree with his policies or not. So this is a this gives him an opportunity, I think.
We'll see where it happens. And as far as you know, the only texts that were made back in 2022? Or?
As far as we know.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see, Julia. Thank you so much.
Thank you.